My girlfriend posted, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself," right after dumping me. I woke up to silence. No sound from her side of the bed, no morning message, no call. The sunlight coming through the blinds felt colder than usual, like even the day knew something had changed. Out of habit, I reached for my phone. Notifications filled the screen, but none from her. Then I saw it, right there at the top of my feed, glowing with the soft pastel tones of her usual posts. A quote that read, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself." The words sat on top of a picture of her standing at the beach, wind in her hair, holding a glass of wine, as if she had just conquered heartbreak with elegance. For a few seconds, I just stared, unable to move. That was how I found out my relationship was over, not from a call or a conversation, but through a motivational quote. The girl who once said she couldn't imagine life without me was now announcing to the world that losing me was part of her healing. My thumb hovered over the heart icon, but stopped halfway. Every like on her post felt like a stranger applauding my disappearance. I scrolled through the comments, and each one hit like a blade. "So proud of you, Queen. You deserve better. Growth looks good on you." They were all celebrating something I didn't even know had happened. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was just a quote. Maybe she'd call later to explain. But deep down, I knew the truth. Her silence wasn't confusion. It was choice. I opened our chat and saw my last message from last night, still unread. She had said she needed time to think. I didn't know that meant forever. Hours passed before I managed to eat something. I went through her stories again, watching each clip carefully. The beach, the music, her laughter in the background, all felt rehearsed. The way she filmed herself swirling that glass of wine wasn't random. It was a statement. She wanted people to see her as free, glowing, reborn. Yet the more I watched, the clearer it became that she was also performing for me. Every frame screamed, "Look what you lost." That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed our last conversation in my mind. It had been short. She said she felt disconnected, like we had grown apart. I tried to remind her of the things we had planned, the trips, the apartment, the late-night promises whispered when life felt heavy. She said she needed space, that she was tired of being defined by us. Those were her words. Defined by us. I didn't realize she already had a plan to redefine herself by erasing me. The following morning, my phone kept buzzing. Friends had seen the post. One sent me a screenshot, followed by a simple message. "Are you okay?" I didn't know how to answer. Was I okay? No. I felt replaced, rewritten, and publicly deleted. Every word of that caption echoed through me like a warning I had ignored. She had been slipping away for months, and I had been too blind to see it. Later that day, I went for a walk. The park we used to visit looked different. Couples sat where we once sat, holding hands, laughing. I realized how fragile connection really is. You can share years with someone, learn their secrets, build dreams together, and still be a stranger in the end. As I walked, I opened her page again. She had gained new followers overnight. People loved her transformation story. In their eyes, she was a woman who broke free. In mine, she was someone who threw everything away for an image. I stopped at a coffee shop we used to visit. The barista recognized me and asked where she was. I smiled and said she was busy. I didn't have the energy to explain that she was busy becoming a symbol of independence at my expense. I sat by the window and scrolled again, searching for meaning in her new world. Her captions were now filled with affirmations about growth, energy, and freedom. But behind the glossy words, I could still see her patterns. Every post was designed to look effortless, yet it all felt calculated, like she wanted to prove something to everyone watching. When I got home, I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I left one message, calm and brief, asking if we could talk. No answer. I sent one text. Nothing. I sat there staring at the blue check marks that never appeared, at the empty space where her replies used to be. I refreshed her profile again. She had changed her bio to becoming the woman I was meant to be. It felt like she had written it just for me to see. By evening, I realized that waiting for her was useless. The quote, the photo, the silence, they were all part of the same message. She didn't want to talk. She wanted to be admired for walking away. So I did the only thing left to do. I logged off. I deleted the app. For the first time in months, I sat in my own quiet without a screen to interpret my life for me. The night grew darker, but I felt something shift inside. Beneath the hurt and confusion, a strange calm began to form. Maybe losing her wasn't the end of something, but the beginning of something else. I didn't know what that something was yet, but it was real. It wasn't curated, filtered, or captioned. It was mine. And as I lay back on the bed that felt too big, I finally understood what she meant about losing everything to find yourself. Only this time, I was the one learning how. The morning after her post, I told myself it was all a misunderstanding. I dialed her number once, twice, 3 times. Each call went to voicemail. I sent a short message asking if we were done, hoping she would at least clarify what she meant. It showed as read within seconds, but no reply came. I watched the small text bubble appear for a moment, then disappear like a ghost teasing me with presence, but not intention. That was the last time her phone showed any sign of life. The first few days were a blur of denial. I convinced myself she just needed space, that she would text back once her emotions settled. Every hour I checked my phone, refreshing the screen as if it could change the outcome. But her silence became its own answer. She had decided that vanishing was easier than facing me. I discovered she had blocked me on Instagram, then on Facebook, then on every platform except Pinterest, which she must have forgotten about. I opened it one night and saw her new activity. Travel boards filled with tropical islands, minimalist apartments, and recipes for one. The message was clear. She was planning a new life, and it didn't include me. The apartment we once shared became a museum of small absences. Her shoes were gone from the hallway, her clothes missing from the drawers, her toothbrush missing from the bathroom counter. Yet her scent still floated in the air, that faint trace of perfume that lingered long after she had left. It was both comfort and torture. Each night I sat on the couch surrounded by things we bought together, all still where she had left them, mocking me with memories. Her favorite mug still sat by the sink, half-stained from coffee she never finished. Her book lay open on the table, a folded page marking a story she never came back to. I tried reaching out to her friends, but they all claimed they hadn't heard from her. One even suggested I move on, that she was just finding herself. I wanted to ask what exactly she was trying to find that I didn't give her. The late nights talking about her dreams, the weekends spent traveling to her favorite places, the support during every setback. Somehow, I had become the obstacle in her journey toward self-discovery. Work became my only escape, but even there, the silence followed me. Every notification I heard, every buzz in my pocket, triggered the same hope, followed by the same disappointment. I checked her Pinterest again one night. New pins appeared every hour. Beaches, sunsets, yoga retreats, expensive wines, and quotes about independence. It felt as if she had turned our breakup into a lifestyle project. I imagined her smiling while choosing those images, curating her healing like an aesthetic brand. I started to wonder if I ever truly knew her, or if I had only loved the version she performed for the world. One evening, I came home to find the rent bill on the table. I was still paying for the apartment she had walked out of. Her name was on the lease, but she had left without a word. I realized then how completely I had been erased. I wasn't just ghosted emotionally. I was erased financially, physically, digitally. She had managed to disappear while leaving every trace of her presence behind for me to handle. I walked through the rooms, turning off the lights one by one, and for the first time, the apartment felt like a stranger's place. The nights grew heavier. I started scrolling through old photos of us, each image cutting deeper than the last. I saw the vacations, the dinners, the nights on the balcony where she said she felt safe with me. I could still hear her laughter in my head, the one that used to fill every silence. I wonder how someone could go from loving me so fiercely to pretending I never existed. The contrast was unbearable. A week later, I received a notification from my bank. A joint account withdrawal, her half of the savings gone. No message, no explanation. Just another silent goodbye. That was when I understood that the woman I was trying to reach no longer existed. She had built a new version of herself, one that didn't include me, one that didn't even acknowledge the past. I deleted her number from my phone, but not before staring at it for a while. I imagined her on some new adventure, smiling in another city, convincing herself that this was growth. Maybe it was. Maybe leaving without explanation was her way of feeling powerful. But for me, it was a slow death, one unanswered message at a time. I stopped calling. I stopped texting. Yet I couldn't stop thinking. Every night, her perfume still lingered, soft and haunting. It faded slowly until one morning I noticed it was gone. That was when it truly hit me. She had moved on, and I was the only one still searching for traces of her. I sat by the window, looking at the world outside, and realized how quiet my life had become. Not peaceful quiet, but hollow quiet. The kind that comes after a storm when all that's left is debris. That day, I decided to stop chasing ghosts. I gathered everything that reminded me of her, the photos, the letters, the small souvenirs from trips, and placed them in a box. I didn't throw it away, not yet. I simply sealed it and put it in the closet. Maybe one day I would be ready to open it again, not to hurt, but to remember without breaking. As the sun went down, I made dinner for one. It felt strange at first, but also grounding. The silence that once felt unbearable now had a rhythm of its own. I began to breathe again, slower, steadier. Her absence no longer filled every corner. It simply became part of the air. I checked my phone one last time before bed. No new messages. Just stillness. And in that stillness, for the first time, I started to see what she might have meant about finding yourself. Maybe losing her wasn't punishment. Maybe it was preparation for something I didn't understand yet. She had chosen her path through silence, and now it was my turn to choose mine through acceptance. I turned off the lights and closed my eyes. The world was still turning, and I was still here, learning to move again without the echo of her name. 2 weeks passed in slow motion. I had stopped checking her pages, or at least that is what I told myself. The truth was that every quiet evening still carried the weight of her absence. Then one afternoon, a message appeared from my friend Leo. He sent a photo and a short line saying I should see this. It was a screenshot from her private feed, something he had seen through a mutual acquaintance. The image hit me harder than any goodbye could. She was standing beside a man I had never seen before, her head tilted toward him, both of them wearing identical silver bracelets that caught the light like deliberate symbols. Her caption read, "Peace looks good on me." For a moment, I could not breathe. The world shrank to the size of that picture. The same woman who had told me she needed time to rediscover herself now looked perfectly content in someone else's company. The word peace burned in my mind like a cruel joke. It was not peace. It was replacement. I stared at the photo until my eyes blurred, searching for clues, hoping to find something that would explain the timeline. Maybe it was old, maybe just a coincidence. But deep down, I knew. Her silence had not been healing. It had been distraction. That night, I could not sleep. I kept replaying the image in my head. Her smile was the same, but there was something new behind it, something staged, as if she wanted everyone to see her triumph. Every detail of the picture felt planned. The bracelets, the angle, even the caption. It was the visual definition of moving on, and she wanted the world to witness it. I felt anger rising, but it was quickly swallowed by disbelief. I had given her everything I had. Late nights talking about dreams, surprise gifts when she felt low, support through her worst moments. Now all of it had become a stepping stone for her new narrative. I was no longer a person in her life. I was an experience she had survived. The next morning, I met Leo for coffee. He looked at me carefully before speaking. He asked if I wanted him to block her name from my feed. I nodded, but stayed silent. I did not want pity. I wanted understanding. I wanted to know why people turned love into performance. We sat there quietly, while the smell of roasted beans filled the air. Around us, people laughed, couples held hands, the world moved on. I realized then that she had already moved on long before she walked out. When I returned home, I opened my laptop and scrolled through old messages. The pattern was clear now. Weeks before the breakup, her tone had shifted. The warmth had drained out of her words, replaced by polite distance. She had already begun editing me out of her life, frame by frame. I remembered the night she stayed up late on her phone, smiling at her screen while I lay next to her pretending to sleep. Back then, I convinced myself she was watching videos or texting a friend. Now I knew better. I tried to tell myself not to care, but my mind refused to cooperate. The image of that new man haunted me. Who was he? How long had he been there? I zoomed into the photo and noticed a small detail on his wrist, a watch I had once seen in a store she used to love. She had probably bought it for him. The thought made my stomach tighten. I closed the laptop, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a drink. The silence of the apartment pressed against me like a weight. The walls seemed to echo with her laughter, mocking me for believing our story was real. Days turned into a strange routine. I woke up, worked, ate, and avoided thinking about her, though she was in every corner of my mind. Then one evening, curiosity won again. I looked at her profile through another friend's account. More photos had appeared. New restaurants, new outfits, new smiles. Her captions were filled with vague philosophies about healing and growth. Each one felt like a line written to bury me deeper under her version of events. I was no longer her partner. I was a chapter titled Mistakes that made me stronger. Instead of anger, a strange clarity began to form. I finally understood that she had not left to find herself. She had left to find a new audience. Her self-discovery journey was content, curated carefully to gain validation. The pain I felt was real, but for her, it was inspiration. My heartbreak had become her brand. I realized I was not just dumped. I had been turned into a lesson, a symbol of what she had overcome. That realization changed something in me. I stopped asking why she left and started asking why I had waited for answers from someone who never intended to give them. The truth was brutal, but freeing. I had built my happiness around someone who built her identity around leaving. I spent the next days reclaiming what was mine, my space, my peace, my direction. I deleted her number, blocked her accounts, and threw away the last of her things. It did not erase the memories, but it gave them boundaries. A week later, I joined Leo and a few friends for dinner. For the first time, I laughed without forcing it. The world felt lighter. Someone mentioned traveling, and without hesitation, I said yes. We planned a trip for the following month, the same kind of trip I used to plan with her but never took because she always found a reason to postpone. Now I was doing it for me. That night, I sat by the window watching the city lights flicker below. I opened my phone and took one final look at her page. The photo that once shattered me now felt distant, like a scene from another life. The man beside her was just another stranger. The bracelets, the smile, the caption, all of it looked smaller than before. For the first time, I saw her not as the woman who broke me, but as someone lost in her own illusion of peace. I turned off my phone and breathed deeply. The air felt cleaner somehow. I realized I did not need closure from her, because I already had it from reality. She had chosen a story where I was the villain or the lesson, but in my story, she was simply a phase that taught me how to start again. The pain was still there, but it had softened, reshaped by acceptance. I poured myself another glass of water, looked at the reflection in the window, and whispered the only truth that mattered. I was still here, still standing, still me. In that quiet moment, I understood something simple, yet powerful. She had posted that peace looked good on her. Maybe it did, but peace also looked good on me. And this time it was real. That morning began like any other, but something inside me was different. The exhaustion that had lived in my chest for weeks began to fade, replaced by a quiet determination. I stopped waiting for messages that would never come. I stopped checking her name in every notification. My phone no longer ruled me. I placed it face down on the table and walked outside. The world looked clearer, sharper, as if the fog that had covered my days was finally lifting. I decided to return to the gym, a place I had avoided since the breakup. The smell of metal, sweat, and determination greeted me like an old friend. Each lift, each drop of effort, felt like shedding a layer of pain. The first few days were brutal, but with every repetition, I started to feel stronger, not just physically but inside. Soon I found myself reconnecting with people I had slowly pushed away during the relationship. My friends welcomed me without judgment. They listened, laughed, and reminded me that life existed outside the bubble I had built around her. We spent evenings sharing stories, playing cards, and staying up late without checking clocks. For the first time in months, I slept without thinking of her face. My body still carried the memory of heartbreak, but it also began to remember joy. One evening, I opened the closet and found a box filled with the things she had left behind. Photos, letters, small gifts that once made me smile. I sat on the floor, held them one by one, and realized they no longer held power over me. They were just objects from a story that had ended. I gathered them all and decided to sell what I could. The money wasn't much, but it gave me an idea. There was something I had always wanted to do, something she once dismissed as foolish. I used the money to buy a camera. It arrived a few days later, still wrapped in plastic and full of possibilities. The first time I held it, I felt excitement I hadn't felt in years. I remembered how much I loved filming small moments, how much peace I found behind a lens. I began recording simple things, the movement of clouds, the streets after rain, the morning light creeping through my curtains. Each clip felt like a conversation with myself, something honest and unfiltered. I started editing them into short videos and posting them online. At first, nobody watched, but I didn't care. The act itself was healing. It gave shape to the silence that had followed her departure. Every new upload became a step forward, a way of proving to myself that creation could replace loss. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. I woke up to hundreds of notifications. A short video I had filmed, a sunrise over the city skyline, had gone viral. 1 million views overnight. Comments flooded in, people thanking me for reminding them of beauty in small things. I sat there staring at the screen, speechless. For the first time in months, I felt proud again. That success ignited something deeper. I began traveling on weekends, filming new places, meeting strangers who shared stories about change and resilience. I realized that pain was not a full stop. It was a comma, a pause before the next sentence of life began. I started to see that maybe she had done me a strange favor. Losing her forced me to find the version of myself I had buried under comfort and fear. She had said that finding yourself meant losing everything. I finally understood it, though not in the way she had meant. The more I filmed, the less I thought about her. The woman who once filled my mind became a quiet shadow in the background. My world grew larger, brighter. I traveled to the coast, to small villages, to mountaintops where the only sound was the wind. With each frame I captured, I found another piece of peace she had taken from me. The camera became my mirror, showing me a reflection that was whole again. One afternoon, while filming a local market, a little boy ran up to me and asked if I was the guy from the sunrise video. I laughed and nodded. His mother smiled and thanked me, saying that my videos helped her during a hard time. That moment stayed with me. For months, I had seen myself as a man broken by love, but now someone saw me as a man who brought light. It was a quiet kind of redemption, one that required no revenge, no confrontation, only growth. The nights no longer felt heavy. I would come home after filming, cook dinner, and edit until dawn. The glow of the screen replaced the cold emptiness of old memories. My apartment no longer smelled like her perfume. It smelled like coffee and creativity. I moved the furniture, repainted the walls, changed the curtains, small actions that made the space feel like mine again. Every change was symbolic, a declaration that I had chosen to live again. Weeks turned into months. My channel grew rapidly. Brands reached out, people wrote letters sharing how my videos inspired them to start over. It felt surreal to realize that something born from heartbreak had turned into hope for others. The same pain that once crushed me had become the foundation of something beautiful. One night, as I was editing a clip of the ocean under moonlight, I paused and watched the waves move in slow rhythm. I thought of her again, not with anger or longing, but with gratitude. She had walked away to find herself, and in doing so, she had unknowingly helped me find myself too. The difference was that my version of peace did not come from escaping. It came from building. That realization changed everything. I no longer defined my story by loss. I defined it by transformation. I had gone from being ghosted to being grounded, from waiting for someone to validate me to creating something that validated itself. My heart had healed not through forgetting her, but through remembering who I was before her. As I uploaded my newest video, I watched the sunrise from my window. The light spread across the buildings, turning the city golden. It felt like the world was applauding quietly. I smiled, not for the views or the recognition, but for the peace within me. The quote that once broke my heart now felt reborn. Sometimes you really do have to lose everything to find yourself, but the meaning changes depending on who you become afterward. That morning, I closed my laptop, stretched, and stepped outside. The sky was bright, the air warm, the world wide open. I was no longer chasing closure. I was creating one. And this time, the ending belonged entirely to me. Months passed, and life finally settled into rhythm. My days were full, my nights peaceful. The noise that once filled my head had quieted into something calm and grounded. The channel had grown beyond what I ever imagined. Every video carried a small piece of my journey, and each comment reminded me that the world could still be kind. I began to travel further, meeting people who saw life with the same raw honesty I had learned to embrace. My camera became an extension of my soul, capturing fragments of humanity that reminded me how beautiful survival could look. Then one morning my phone buzzed. The name that appeared on the screen stopped me cold. It was her. I had deleted her number long ago, but I recognized the rhythm of those digits immediately. For a few seconds, I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message was short and polished, just like her old captions. She wrote that she had been watching my videos, that I had changed, that she was proud of me. The words looked harmless, but they carried the weight of old ghosts. My hands trembled as I read them again. At first, I didn't feel anger. What I felt was a strange sense of distance. It was as though I was looking at a stranger pretending to know me. I remembered all the nights I had begged for a single reply, the endless silence, the sudden erasure. Now, months later, she was reaching out as if time had softened everything into nostalgia. I wondered what had triggered her message. Maybe loneliness. Maybe curiosity. Maybe she saw my success and wanted to touch a piece of it. Whatever the reason, I knew one thing for certain. I was not the man she left behind. I looked at her message again and smiled. There was irony in it, almost poetic. She had once posted that losing everything was how you find yourself, and here she was, trying to reconnect with the version of me that had actually done it. I typed slowly, choosing each word with care. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself, right? It was short, calm, and precise, the kind of reply that carried no anger, no longing, just truth. I hit send and waited. A minute passed, then two. No response. I did not expect one. Before she could type anything back, I pressed block. Not from bitterness, but from peace. That single action felt like closing a door that had been left open for far too long. My chest felt light, my breathing steady. For the first time, I was not reacting to her. I was choosing for myself. The day went on as usual, but the world looked sharper. The air smelled cleaner, the sunlight warmer. I went to the market to film a new project and found myself laughing with strangers. My friends noticed my good mood and joked that I had finally turned into a full-time optimist. I smiled because they were right. The past no longer followed me like a shadow. It had turned into fuel, something that pushed me forward instead of holding me down. That evening, I sat by the window editing footage from a recent trip. The video showed a small village at dusk, children playing in the distance, laughter echoing between narrow streets. As I watched it, I realized how far I had come from the man who once measured his worth through someone else's affection. The heartbreak had burned me to ashes, but the rebirth had been worth it. Every frame, every image, every story I told now carried the strength of that transformation. I thought about her once more. Maybe she had seen my growth and realized what she had lost. Or maybe she was simply searching for validation, the kind she used to find online. But that no longer mattered. Her opinion no longer had power over me. She had left when I was still searching for identity, and I had built that identity without her help. What she saw now was a reflection of what she underestimated. Later that night, I walked outside. The streets were quiet, the city lights shimmering in the puddles from a recent rain. I pointed my camera at the reflections and began recording. The lens captured everything: the glow of traffic, the distant sound of laughter, the pulse of life moving forward. I realized that peace was not a destination, but a daily decision. Blocking her was not an act of revenge. It was an act of self-respect. Weeks went by, and her message faded into memory. My following kept growing, and with it came new opportunities. A company invited me to collaborate on a documentary project. It felt surreal to think that something born from heartbreak had evolved into purpose. I traveled again, this time to the mountains, capturing sunrises that reminded me of the one that had gone viral months before. The world was vast, and I was finally exploring it without the weight of what was lost. On one of those mornings, as the first light spread across the horizon, I stood with the camera in my hand and thought of the quote that had once destroyed me. It had started as her excuse for leaving, a neatly packaged line meant to justify breaking my heart. But now it had become mine, rewritten by experience, filled with new meaning. She had used it to escape, but I had used it to rebuild. The camera clicked as I captured the rising sun. In that moment, I realized something simple but profound. The version of me that she had loved was built on approval. The version of me that stood here now was built on truth. I no longer needed anyone to tell me who I was. I had already found it in the stillness between pain and creation. When I returned home that evening, I scrolled through the comments on my latest video. A stranger had written that my story reminded them to keep going. That single line made me smile more than her message ever could. It was proof that what I had built from heartbreak was now helping others heal. I closed my laptop and turned off the lights. The room glowed softly from the street outside. I stood there for a moment, letting the quiet settle around me. The past had ended exactly as it was meant to. Her quote had become my truth, but in a way she could never understand. She had left to find herself and lost everything that mattered. I had lost her and found everything I needed. That night, I slept peacefully, without dreams, without questions, without the ache of old memories. I had finally reached the place she had always claimed to be searching for. It was not on a beach with a wine glass or in a quote written for strangers. It was here, in the silence of my own growth, in the stillness of a life I built on purpose and peace.